Back in the garage, back in the garage, back in the garage today, back in the garage. Alright guys, back in the garage today, working on my Honda CRF230. Factory bars on it, a little bent. Decided to get some Fly Racing, I believe they're called Aluma-Steel bars. Still kept with the 7/8 inch diameter, didn't want to change all the clamps and everything. Just wanted something that was straight and maybe a little bit heavier duty, and in my opinion they look a little cooler too. So let's get to work. So the first thing I'm going to do that you may not have to do is I'm going to remove these hand guards, bark busters, whatever you want to call them. I actually did a video on these recently, which I'll link right up here if you want to see how these were put on. I'm going to remove these first, which is just the opposite of the way they were put on, so I'm not actually going to show this on camera so I can show you the rest of the stuff. Next thing I'm going to do is remove this number plate. You can see I've already got this loosened up, and then it pretty much just pops right off. Next thing I'm going to do is clip a couple of these zip ties so I got these cables and stuff loose, and then we'll come back. Just took a pair of wire cutters and snapped those. Next thing I'm going to do is remove the brake lever. It's just a single Phillips, or excuse me, clutch lever, just a single Phillips screw underneath there. Actually lied, it's actually two Phillips head screws, the other one's right there. In the meantime, I'm just going to put these two in lightly so I don't lose those screws, and then just let the clutch lever hang down. Now we have a few things to remove on this side. We need to get rid of the brake master cylinder and lever combination, and then we're also going to have to take the throttle tube off and the starter kill switch assembly. Nothing major here, just a couple of 8mm bolts. We'll get these two removed, and we're kind of do the same thing. I'll show you in just a second. Same deal, we're just going to put those bolts back in, let this hang down, and we'll come back to it in a moment. Now I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the throttle tube next. It's just two Phillips heads, and then I will get to this assembly. Now this is just my opinion. I'm not going to take this entire thing apart because I don't want to have to fool with the whole putting the cable and everything back on, and it'll stay in this housing. So what I'm going to do is next remove this, and then we're going to remove the handlebar and just let this thing slide right off the end. Same deal on the kill switch starter button assembly. I just loosen this up with these two Phillips under here. I'm going to slide this off in a moment. Next we're going to come over here to the clamp bolts and get these removed. Okay, so as you can tell, I've got the clamps removed, and I set them down here. That is in the exact position they were in. That way I don't mess this up. Now we're going to pop this bar off. I'm not sure how well you guys will be able to tell. You can tell there's a bend in it. I mean, I really see it. But anyway, let's get the Fly Racing bar put on next. Now because I'm using hand guards, I'm going to go ahead and pop these plastic things off because we're going to need those off here in a second. It's much easier to do it before we get it on the bike and have to deal with the grips and everything. Now you can tell I've got them removed. They're fairly easy to remove. You can see there's little plastic caps. Just stick a flat bit screwdriver. You could maybe even use a knife, but just something flat and it'll pop right out. Now you may have noticed this decal, and this is on the throttle side. So I'm going to peel this decal off, and then we're going to clean this bar up before we put it on the bike. Okay, so we got about 99% of the sticker off, but you can see we still got all this residue left behind. So I'm going to use a little bit of Goo Gone or dissolve it and get this crap off of here. You can see we get that cleaned up, got all the residue off of there, which is important because the throttle tube is going to go on this end, and we don't want it to interfere with either turning the gas on or it snapping back into place. So make sure that's good and clean before you go to put the bar on. First thing I want to do, since I did it this way, is I'm just going to go ahead and slide this piece back on. Also going to slide the throttle tube back on, and then I'm just going to place the bar right here in place. We're just going to set the bar in place temporarily. While it was nice to Fly Racing to include a bar pad, I did take it off temporarily because it's going to allow me to get to the clamp bolts a little bit easier. We'll put it back on at the very end. All we want to do right now is just get these on and get them snugged up just a little bit because we're going to make some final adjustments before we're totally finished. Alright, so I got the new handlebar bolted on. These are not tight. I want to go ahead and get the rest of the hardware on so then I can actually sit on the bike, figure out exactly where I want it, and then torque these clamps back down. It is possible to reuse the grip on this side, but for $7 I just got two new grips. We're going to go ahead and replace this one. Might as well replace the throttle grip as well. Then I'm going to pull this thing down off the stand, make sure all the controls are exactly where I want them, and then I'll start snugging things up, and then we'll get the hand grips put back on, or the hand guards put back on, and then we'll be done. So you can tell I've already cut a hole in the end of this grip, This goes on the left-hand side where your clutch goes. I'm just going to use a little bit of brake cleaner, spray this in here, and then slide it onto the handlebar. Watch that thing, make sure it doesn't fall off there. Keep an eye on it. Just like that, it slides right on. Now, if you want, you've got these lines built in from Pro Grip, so you can go ahead and put a little bit of safety wire on there, but we'll see how well it sticks. All right, so I'm just kind of sitting up here on the bike right now. I'm trying to get the right feel. I got the bar about where I want it, so I'm going to lock these back down and probably go ahead and lock the clutch lever and brake levers down too. And then we'll get some zip ties thrown back on and the hand guards thrown back on as well. So there it is, guys, the new Fly Racing Aluma-Steel handlebar, complete with the bar pad. Just went ahead off camera and zip tied a couple things back on there. Looks pretty clean. Got it set the way I want it. May be different than the way you want it, but just make sure you got everything the way you want before snugging everything back down. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed the install video today of the Fly Racing Aluma-Steel handlebar on my Honda CRF230. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, I look forward to you being one. Always look forward to the comments in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to let you know how I like it. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.